Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Asrani, Cabinet, and MJUSD community. Tonight, I will present the 2022-23 first interim budget. This budget update provides a picture of the district's financial condition from July 1st through October 31st and projects financial activity through June 30th, 2022. In this presentation, I will go over the budget cycle, give a budget update on our unrestricted and restricted general funds, along with an update of our COVID relief funds and one-time block grants, general fund summary, multi-year projections, and next steps. This is a diagram of our LCAP budget cycle. We are constantly working in a 3-year cycle. It begins in July with the adopted budget of the 22-23 fiscal year. In September, we have closed our books for the 21-22 fiscal year and bring to you our unaudited actuals. Here we are now in December with the 22-23 first interim financial update. In January, we will hear from the governor on his 23-24 fiscal year budget proposal. And then in March, we'll come back with the 22-23 second interim financial report. And then April through May, we'll begin working on our preliminary LCAP and budget. In May, the governor will come out with his revised to his budget proposal for the 23-24 fiscal year. And then in June, we'll present to you the proposed adopted budget and LCAP for your approval for the 23-24 fiscal year. I'll begin with an overview of changes from adopted budget to the first interim of our unrestricted general fund. The unrestricted general fund is for the general operation of the school district. First interim compared to adopted budget reflects an increase of revenue of $6.4 million. $6.2 million of the increase is due to the COLA of 6.7% that increased from the enacted state budget. We also had a slight increase in local revenue due to a CalSTRS excess calculation and interest earned. The net increase of unrestricted general fund expenditures is $1.4 million. The $1.4 million net increase to expenditures is due to unrestricted site discretionary carryover, the alignment of salary and benefits, 21-22 negotiated salary increase for the CSEA bargaining units, an increase to routine restricted maintenance to meet the required 3% maintenance of effort, realignment of the indirect costs from restricted programs. This next section will compare the restricted side of the general fund from first interim to adopted budget. Restricted funds come from other state revenue and federal revenue and are available for use only within the program and purposes for which they are granted. The restricted general fund revenue has increased by $74.5 million since the adopted budget. Of the $74.5 million increase, federal revenue increased by $42.7 million due to 21-22 carryover. These funds include COVID relief, our ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and ELO grants, and other federal funds such as our title funding. We also had an increase in our other state revenue of $30.8 million for our Learning Recovery Emergency Grant and Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. And then we also had 21-22 carryover for our programs such as Inclusive Early Education, CTIG, Special Education, K-12 Strong Workforce, and we had a slight increase in local revenue for our Medi-Cal billing of $500,000. Restricted general fund expenditures increased by $32 million. This $32 million increase is due to the 21-22 carryover budgeted for expenditures that include salary and benefits for extra duty for both certificated and classified employees, materials and supplies, services and other operating expenses for programs such as Expanded Learning, Opportunities Program, Title Funds, and COVID Relief Funds. $11.6 million is allocated to the COVALAD 16 classroom building from our ESSER 2, and we had a transfer of outgo to our MCAA of their ESSER funds and title funds. This is an overview of the remaining COVID relief funds. The ESSER II funds must be spent by June 2023. The ESSER III and ELO grants have a spending deadline of June 2024. The following slide summarizes the expenditures allocated to the COVID relief funds. This recap of COVID relief expenditures is summarized by funding source. ESSER II, Covalad Classroom Building. ESSER III has been allocated for increased learning support and the Foothill Modernization Project, and the ELO grants for learning support. A deeper dive into the COVID relief funds reflects positions that have been added to increase support to our students and staff. Additional one-time funding sources that have occurred since the adopted budget are the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant and the Arts, Music, and Instructional Discretionary Block Grant. The Learning Recovery Grant of $15.8 million has a spending deadline of September 30th, 2028. Although a spending plan is not required, a reporting of expenditures is, and spending is restricted to allowable uses such as pupil supports, instruction for credit deficit students, increase or stabilize instruction learning time, and closing gaps. The Art and Music's discretionary grant does require a plan and has a spending deadline of June 30th, 2026. The allowable uses for this grant are standards-aligned professional development and instructional materials, diverse book collections, operational costs, and pandemic-related supplies. Next is a summary of the total general fund. This summary reflects unrestricted, restricted, and combined totals for the general fund. The total revenues minus the expenditures less other uses equals a net increase to the fund balance of $31.9 million. This added to the beginning balance of $60.6 million totals a $92.5 million ending fund balance. The components of this $92.5 million ending fund balance are revolving cash and estimated ending inventory, $654,000, restricted use, $57.9 million, committed for our facilities and technology, $11 million, assignments, $17.3 million, economic uncertainty, $5.7 million, for a total fund balance of $92.5 million. Multi-year projections include the current multi-year projections include the current fiscal year budget and budget projections for the 2 subsequent years. This is a planning tool that considers current and projected planning factors. This multi-year projection is a summary of the unrestricted general fund. You can find more detail on the multi-year in your first interim budget packet. This is a table of the planning factors considered when projecting this current year budget and our out years. We use the Department of Finance statutory COLA, along with any local control funding COLA, projected STRS and PERS employer rates, and Universal Transitional Kindergarten ADA. We also use a 2% step and column increase for each year for our added salary and benefit costs. Coming up next will be our LCAP and budget meetings. In January, we'll hear what the governor budget proposal has to say for the 23-24 fiscal year. Capital advisors will be here in February to give us an update. And in March, we'll present to you the 22-23 second interim financial reports. I would like to give a huge thank you to Cindy Helms, the Director of Fiscal, and her entire team for all their hard work preparing our financials. And I'd also like to thank you for your time this evening.